Today, we are going to talk a little bit about reputation and building a reputation while you're building your business. You know, the early interactions that you have, especially with customers, can really determine a lot. Especially nowadays when there's reviews everywhere, it can absolutely, even crush your business sometimes if you have, you know, really bad reviews. So definitely something that's important is for us to, keep a good reputation, and also in the business in general. When we're talking about, people we're working with, or we're business partners or vendors, whatever it is, we want to keep a good reputation. One of the best things that can help an entrepreneur is having good relationships with vendors. Good relationships with vendors will allow you to, get deals like net 30, net 60, payments, so that you can essentially have credit with those vendors. And in those situations, I mean, that can save your business at times. Other times it can make it so that it can operate much more efficiently. So, very important to keep those relationships and just keep a good reputation in general. I can say from experience that when I've been down at times, having that reputation of people knowing, what I've done, what I do, how hard that I work, and the fact that I do good business has helped me when I'm down, because other people are willing to help out. They're willing to work with you when you have that good reputation. And one of the best reputations you can ever have is that people know that you work hard and that you are, going to be successful, right? No matter what it actually takes. So as long as we keep going, we will be good. But yeah, reputation definitely plays a big part in your business success. Now, I can't stress enough how much it does nowadays with customers, now that we are in the age of, online reviews. And one bad review from a customer can rise to the top of some of these sites, or just SEO in general on Google, and then it can become a real problem for you. Now, there's reputation services that will, fix this for you, or try to. Some cost tens of thousands of dollars. Some of them work, some don't. But our best bet is to not get there in the first place, where we have, bad reviews out there. So we want to try to keep a good reputation as much as possible. Obviously, one of those, part of a good reputation is definitely paying people on time, right? So whether it's your vendors or your employees or whatever it is, that's usually, step one, of course, of having a good reputation, is make sure that everyone gets paid on time. That's a big one. And just treating people in general. Now, this is something that I struggled with as an early entrepreneur. You know, it's difficult dealing with people, whether it's customers or, staff members or partners or vendors, whatever it is. Dealing with people is definitely one of the most difficult parts of business, and we have to remember that people remember how we treat them, right? And this is something that I struggle with. I'm sure a lot of entrepreneurs have struggled with, something that I've struggled with in the past for sure. Is just making sure that you treat everyone, well, treat everyone equally, especially when it comes to, customers. And that's not easy. It's easier said than done, right? But we want to make sure that everyone has a good experience with our company. Again, especially nowadays with how many review platforms there are, we want to make sure that we don't, make mistakes with customers, end up with a bad review that ends up at the top of all the review sites, or the top of the Google results, and then we're in big trouble, and it can really affect the bottom line. It can affect your sales big time. Now, one of the ways to try to keep a good reputation with, you know, customers is something that I spoke about the other day, which is having something to give them for free if you mess up, and have that built into your business so that your sales reps or your staff customer service knows that if somebody has XYZ issues or somebody is upset, we always have this that we could offer them for free. So we want to try to pick something that's great and beneficial to the client that they would love getting for free. But we, on our end, we want to make sure that it's something that doesn't really cost us much, or hopefully doesn't cost us anything, but maybe a little bit of time or effort, or maybe a small cost. So that's definitely a big recommendation, I would say, to help keep your reputation good with clients, is just have that built into your business. Hey, if somebody's upset, we can give them this for free. And if they're not satisfied with that, we can talk about it further. But typically, being able to get something for free, feeling like it's not just giving them something for free, they then feel like they're taken care of. So you're killing two birds with one stone. For one, they are getting something for free. And for two, they feel like you care, they feel like you're taking care of them, and they feel like they can come to you when there's a problem with your product or service and that you'll fix it. And that's one of the best feelings that a customer can have about your business, is that they had a good experience, is that even if they had an issue, it was handled well and dealt with, and they feel that if they have an issue in the future, they could come to you, so they feel comfortable buying more of your products or services. So that's a big one. I would say that saved so many reputations of my businesses, right? Of just having something there, ready to give to people, and something that's free, something that's cheap to you as the business, but something that people will, appreciate. So, you know, when we're building a reputation as a business, it compounds quietly, right? The first year, again, very important, making sure that we don't, get bad reviews, that we don't burn any relationships. But as you go on, it just kind of compounds into being more and more important. So we have to make sure that we stay on it. Now, those early years can really come back to haunt you if you've burned bridges. A lot of industries are smaller than you think. So that's why a good reputation in the industry in general. So moving from talking about customers to talking about the industry. So we're talking about, excuse me. So we're talking about, coworkers, we're talking about, competitors, we're talking about vendors, potential partners, all this kind of stuff can be wrapped up in your reputation in a certain industry. So it's definitely something where we don't want to be like going to events and starting fights with people, or, being negative about people. Definitely, excuse me. We definitely don't want to be negative online publicly about people in the industry. Those things get picked up on, people see it. And, it's definitely not good to be known as somebody that's negative or somebody that's calling people out publicly all the time. These are things that people aren't typically going to want to work with you when they're like, hey, this person's always online being negative or talking crap about people. So we don't want to have that reputation of, you know, going going out there and being negative, I guess I should say. And one important thing about reputations is you don't get a reset, right? So, everybody talks about first impressions. You don't really get a reset of the first impression either, but I'm talking about a little bit more in general, just a general impression. You don't get a chance to reset it if it gets super negative, if it gets bad and people hear this about you first. It's hard to change that, right? And especially if they keep hearing it. Now, I will say that some people I've heard bad things about in business, when I actually meet them or work with them, they're actually great. And then, I can see why some of the people say what they say, but I say, hey, well, these people are just complaining because this person is great or they do great work or whatever it is. And maybe the kind of word around about them is a little bit unfair. So that happens at times too. I've definitely met people that have a bad reputation. When I see them, see how they work hard, see what they do, and say, oh wow, that's kind of a misconception I think out there that people have. But we want to try to clear up those misconceptions as much as possible, make sure that they aren't out there happening in the first place. And, you know, the negative stuff, unfortunately travels faster than the positive stuff. So negative things that can affect your reputation are always going to be, quicker to be talked about than the positive stuff. There's always going to be more light. There's always going to be, just like if it's something online, there's going to be more comments if it's negative. So, we got to be careful about that and make sure that we're trying to stay positive and that people don't have negative things out there to say for it to just feed off of and end up giving you a bad reputation. And again, one of the worst things nowadays is just people searching online and people looking you up and making sure that the top things that come up are good things and not a bunch of bad things, bad reviews that can definitely hurt your business. All right, let's go ahead and take some questions then here. Remember, you can always send questions in to my DM at Kyle Hiersche or at Founding Without Funding. You can also ask questions here live. We do stream this live on all the different platforms. Remember, if you need help starting or growing your business, go to foundingwithoutfunding.com to get the book. Foundingwithoutfunding.com will help you grow or start your business if it's not started yet. So let's go ahead and get into the questions here. I have some questions that were sent in ahead of time. And then again, feel free to drop any questions you have there live in the chat. Excuse me. Okay, so Elliot is asking, was there a moment when someone remembered how you handled something years ago and it surprised you? So was there a moment where someone remembered how you handled something years ago and it surprised you? Yeah, absolutely. I run into people all the time, especially about the music company, an event company, talking about, yeah, I mean, it was so long ago, and you guys, something that I talk about a lot, and that I was talking about earlier this episode is giving people the free stuff. So I actually ran into somebody not that long ago that said, "Oh man, when back in the day when I was doing the events, you guys were so great and professional, and one time you messed it up, but you gave me a free one, and I was so impressed that I kept doing events with you." So that's funny. It's an exact example of what I'm talking about, of giving somebody, there was some kind of mix up or some event got canceled or whatever it was, so something was given to this person for free. And in that business, we have things built in like that are like, okay, this is a low cost thing to us. You could give this to somebody for free if they have a problem. And that person actually came up to me, it wasn't that long ago, and was saying that they remember that it was a professional experience, and they were talking about 5-10 years ago, right? So yeah, there's definitely been times where people come up later and say, hey, it was so nice dealing with you guys. You were professional, or even when you messed something up, you came through and gave and went above and beyond. That's the kind of reputation you want to have out there. And I can't stress enough how it makes people feel comfortable with purchasing your product or service again if they know that when something went wrong, you took care of them. Right now, they're more likely to purchase from you than someone else. So you turn a negative into a positive. You turn a negative of, I don't want to buy from this person anymore because the one thing I bought from them is messed up. You turn that into, wow, even when this place messes up, they make it right and go above and beyond. So I'm comfortable buying from them. Somebody else might mess it up and give me nothing, but I know if they mess it up, they're going to give me something. They're going to go above and beyond. They're going to take care of me. They're going to stand by their word. That's the kind of reputation we want out there. Okay, Marina is asking, did you ever underestimate how much people were paying attention to you early on? I think, I'm not sure. There's two sides to this. For one, people aren't paying attention to you as much as you think they are, right? Everyone is in their own life. They're the main character in their own movie. Nobody is watching you as much as they think they're watching you. Now, nowadays, especially with social media, and if you post a lot, I mean, people are technically watching you, but people don't think about you as much as you think that they do. So I think that that's one side of it. But I think, the other side to your question is just, yes, early on, I think the reputation is, extremely important. And looking back on it, you may not have taken that into account, right? When you're new, you're trying to do whatever it takes, you're trying to cut corners. Maybe you're even kind of ruthless about some stuff, which a lot of successful business people are ruthless, right? And so sometimes I think back and think that, the reputation probably could have been a little bit more focused on in the very beginning of some of my businesses. But we live and we learn, we make mistakes and we correct them. All right, question here from Jonah, what's a small interaction you didn't think mattered that ended up coming back later? Um, well, I think small interactions. There's a couple small interactions that changed my life where I met, business partners. Where I met my mentor was an extremely small, random, by chance interaction, and that absolutely changed my life. I learned a lot from my mentor, who has since passed away. Rest in peace to Jay Hatch, Jason. And I learned so much from him. And one of the things that I learned is about reputation. So it really hits on what we're talking about here today, which is he had the best reputation out there in the music business. I mean, anybody who know him or knows of him knows that. He taught me that more than anything, and he taught me that by example of how he conducted business and how he carried himself, carried over into all kinds of benefits that essentially kind of came to him, right? You would notice, like, wow, he's doing this, he's doing that. This company has teamed up with him to do this, and it's like, wow, these companies are coming to him, these people are coming to him, they're working with him, and you realize why once you do business with him, because he's just so he just has such a great reputation that people all feel comfortable going to work with him. And I don't think I've ever met anybody with a better reputation in any industry that I've been in, than Jay Hatch, who has since passed away. But he definitely changed my life, and he definitely taught me the importance of that, because it's very easy to partner with people, to get people to work with you, to put things together when you have such a solid reputation, and also combining that with being positive and, most importantly of all, executing, which he always did. So it's important, obviously, to have the reputation. It's important to be positive, but you also have to execute. And when you get known for having a good, positive reputation and executing, then a lot of things will come your way, just like they did with my mentor, Jay Hatch. Okay, question here from Nina. What's something you did when you had nothing that helped you later when you actually had leverage? I think something that I did early on when I didn't have money was invest every dollar that I could into the business and then keep investing. We were really big on that. We were really big on not taking any money out of the business at all, not, doing fun things and crazy things, just pouring everything back into the business. I mean, especially the first few years. When we started to have some success and when we moved to Miami and all that kind of stuff, we still invested heavily into the business, but we started taking a little bit of money out. But before that, we were taking nothing out at all and just 24/7 grinding, putting it back into the company. And even once we moved to Miami, we were doing the same thing. But, obviously we had to start taking some money out to live in Miami. So, I think that's something early on that affected me so much that, it's also taught me to do the same thing in other businesses. And it's really, most entrepreneurs would tell you that it's extremely important to invest your profits back into the business, especially early. Most entrepreneurs can tell you we're probably going to have to invest more out of our pocket during that time to keep things going, and that's just the way that it is, and that's the game that we play as entrepreneurs. Okay, question here from Troy. Did you ever see someone burn their reputation early on and not realize until it was too late? Yeah, I've seen some people burn their reputations for sure. Um, it happens, and the saying, you see the same people on the way up that you do on the way down, right? And so I've definitely seen people burn a lot of bridges. And I mean, I originally come from the music industry, right? So you can imagine, I've definitely seen lots of people burning bridges and lots of people getting bad reputations. I mean, you can be a famous artist or producer or, whatever it may be. And if you do bad business, people, learn about it. Promoters know, everybody knows in the industry that they don't want to work with you. And so it even happens in the first industry I came from, which is known to be a pretty cutthroat industry. Okay. Lena's asking, how do you think about reputation when money is tight and shortcuts feel tempting? Um, just try to do good, right? We want to do good business at all times. And let me tell you, you can even do good business and people will still be upset and you still will get bad reviews. I mean, every company in the world has bad reviews, right? So, you want to keep the reputation as clean as possible. But at the end of the day, there's always going to be issues. There's always going to be people who maybe just don't, even if you bend over backwards to make them happy, they just didn't get your product or service. And even when you refund them, they're still saying they had a bad experience or they wasted their time or whatever. It's going to happen. We're going to get bad reviews. We want to try to. Now, here's my big tip with reviews: try to publicly respond to them in a very positive way, right? You want to take people's feedback and say, thank you so much for the feedback, for the comments. This is what we'd like to do for you. This is what we're doing to make that better. And people appreciate that. Now, the number one thing to not do with bad reviews is respond to them negatively. That is a terrible thing. It compounds the negativity of the review. It makes a bad review look even worse for you. But when you look at the reviews, when you respond to them publicly with very professional and nice and trying to solve the problem, people see that and they understand that you're tuned in. They understand that a bad review means a lot to you, right? That you're there trying to make up for it. And so, that's one of the things. I like to do business with places that do have reviews and that do have, some companies aren't online like at all and don't really have reviews. That's probably not the best company to work with. It's great to work with a company that gets a lot of their business from the internet and they have a bunch of reviews and they rely on those reviews to get more business. That's the kind of company I want to give my business to, is a company I can hold accountable. How are you going to hold a company accountable that doesn't have any reviews online, that doesn't have any sites where you can go give it negative reviews if they, don't provide the product or service as they said they were? Personally, I'm always looking for places where, hey, I know that they get a lot of their money off the internet, right? People you find on the internet, they're the top page, or they're paying Google for the search ads or whatever it is. I know that they care about their reputation online, and that if something goes bad, I can say, hey, you guys need to fix this, or else I'm going to give a bad review, and that actually means something to them. A business that doesn't have any online presence, saying you're going to give them a bad review means nothing to them, because they don't even have a place half the time to give them a review. They haven't even set up their Google business, right? So, personally, that's who I like to give my business to, is companies that I know get their business online, so that an online review would actually, be bad for them. So they want to prevent that. Let's see here. We'll take one last question. So Andre's asking, was there a time where doing the right thing cost you short term but paid off later? Yeah, I think pretty much my whole journey doing the right thing has cost in the short term, but you know, usually wins in the long term. So I don't know if I have a specific example of that, but I do feel like that's everything. That's through the entire journey. Is there's always shortcuts that you can see that would be beneficial to you, but may not be the right thing. They may be bad for your reputation, or they may just not feel right, may not feel good. And that's tempting. And you have to balance that, right? You have to balance wanting to feel good about what you're doing and still trying to get to where you need to go. And some people have gotten to where they need to go by being very ruthless. And some people have, looked at those same corners that they could cut and say that that's not they're not comfortable with that ethically. And that's something that you have to decide. But I would say that, not cutting corners and ruining your reputation in the short term is always going to pay off in the long term, in my opinion. All right. Well, with that, we will go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We will see you